Hey guys, I am back and today I am doing another book review for you. So I have started buying a lot of the books on my most anticipated books of 2019. So I thought I'd start like a cool series where I would basically read those books and let you know if they were worth the anticipation and whether or not I enjoyed them. So I've already done one video where I read Queenie by Candace Carty-Williams, so I will link that down below if you want to check it out. I ended up really liking and enjoying that book, so far we're good for the books that I have read. Today I'm actually going to be talking about two other books that were on my most anticipated reads that I have to review today. So the first book I'm talking about is Internment by Samira Ahmed. I was instantly drawn to this book because of its cover. The cover art is really stunning and really interesting, and I love seeing brown people on book covers. So that's what initially drew me to the story, but once I heard the premise, I was even more excited. This basically follows a near future where we have a horrible president that is in power, which is leading to a lot of bigotry, racism. So basically there is a lot of scare about Muslim terrorists, so they started putting all the Muslims into internment camp. It's supposed to kind of reflect on what happened during World War II when Japanese Americans were put into internment camps, so it has like this similar vibe. And we follow our main character, Layla, who is put in this internment camp with her parents and her experiences throughout this very horrible situation. Right off the bat, I have to say that I was very disappointed with this book, which is really upsetting to say because the premise and the idea of the story sounded so impactful, and I think this could have been done really well, but sadly the way this book was executed did not really do anything for me. I have a lot of criticisms about this book, but the main criticism is that we don't feel anything for the characters. I think that's the biggest problem, is that because I don't know these characters well enough, I don't feel any emotional impact towards what is going on, and that's really sad because a lot of the things that happen in this book are pretty brutal and traumatizing, but a lot of the characters are kind of just one-dimensional. We don't really get enough background on them, and it's kind of just really disappointing. Like, there are scenes in the book where we see these Muslim characters being brutally abused, basically, but we don't know any of these characters, and then the main character kind of recalls a moment where she was talking to this character before in the internment camp, but we don't actually see that actual scene. It's like her retelling the scene through her eyes, and I think if we had actually seen that scene where she got to interact with these people that were now being hurt or abused, would have made it more impactful, I think, in that way. And there's also a romantic interest in this book, and I think I don't have an issue with romantic interests. I think if they're done well, they're add to the story, but honestly, I don't think there needed to be a romantic aspect to this story. The main character, Layla, was so focused on getting to see her boyfriend while she was in this internment camp that it kind of really distracted from everything else in the book. It seemed like that was her main reason for everything, and she just seemed very melodramatic about everything else, and it's really hard because I really wanted to like this book, and I think the topic that is being discussed in the book is really important, but overall this book just doesn't do anything for me. I think it would have been better if it had been written from an adult perspective, or at least have been written from a perspective that wasn't so boy crazy. I think that her romantic relationship really distracts from the overall plot of the story. There are a lot of holes in the plot as well, and I think the villain in the story is almost too villainous to the point where he's just kind of like a stereotype. Yeah, I just really was disappointed. I do think, however, that Ahmed does a really good job of depicting this one scene in the book where the parents and Layla are being taken from their home and being sent to the internment camp, and the person that is like basically driving them to the train station where they'll be like continue on their journey to be sent to this internment camp is a police officer that they are like friends with in the town that they have lived in. And seeing them getting torn away from their home, basically leaving everything that they know, and they're not really sure where they're going or what they should bring and what they should leave behind, or the majority of the things they have to leave behind. That was probably the most emotional, impactful piece of the book, and I think that was really well done. You definitely feel for Layla and having to leave all of this behind and not really even knowing if she's going to return home. And I think that really reflects a lot of what happened, especially in the Japanese internment camps, because they were in there for so long that they really didn't have anywhere to go home to after they were released. So it's very like emotional and impactful to think about what it must have been like to be ripped away from your home, and then once you're released you have none of that to return to. So I think that scene was done very well. And I also think the scene of like knowing someone personally that is participating in this like bigotry and kind of not understanding their reasonings, but just really it's more of like following the crowd. And I liked that because Layla kind of has a conversation with the police officer as they're driving. You almost think that because the people that you know would be less likely to like hurt you or stand for you, but they're more scared of basically saving themselves rather than fighting for what's right. That it was really an impactful scene as well. She attempts to do something really great in this book. I just think the execution was not done very well, and there are a lot of things that happen that are very horrible things, but I think they're done in a very melodramatic way, and a lot of them don't have a ton of like reasoning. I didn't want to spoil anything, but there is a character that dies in the book, but the way he dies doesn't make any logical sense to me. It just seems like it was placed there to have some tragic moment where one of the characters that we've kind of followed pass away to make the story feel more emotionally impactful and dramatic. But to me, it just seems like a waste. Like, it doesn't make sense why he would die that way. And yeah, but all in all, I think this book could have been done better, so I'm disappointed. So in terms of most anticipated books, I would say this is probably not my favorite. It's hard because I do think that it's worth reading and understanding, and I think it does give you a better understanding of what Japanese Americans were going through in World War I. I think take it with caution. I think the meaning behind this book is done very well. It is a little preachy as well, so again, I think that she doesn't give her readers enough credit to kind of like figure out the problems on her own. They're kind of just stated point blankly, and that's a little bit frustrating as well. But I think if you want to gain a better understanding of what it would be like to be marginalized and be in a predicament where you don't feel like you're getting support from the country and support from other people, I think this is definitely worth checking out. Maybe not purchase it, check it out in your library perhaps, or borrow it. But yeah, I don't know. I just have mixed conflicting feelings about this. I finished this book probably like a few weeks ago, and I'm still kind of just frustrated and unsure about my full reactions, but yeah. So this is Internment. The next book on my most anticipated reads that I ended up reading was The Opposite of Always by Justin A. Reynolds. This book I was very intrigued with because, again, we have brown people on the cover. We follow our main character, Jack, who falls in love with this girl he meets at a party, and she ends up passing away due to some unknown illness that he wasn't able to kind of like hear from her. And then after the day she passes away, he goes back and repeats that, like, I think it's a 3-month period when he meets her to the time when she passes away, and he continues to repeat that period. Basically, not sure why he's repeating it or time traveling, but he knows that his goal is to kind of basically do anything he can to save her life. I really liked the premise, but I also think that this kind of like Groundhog Day scenario is tricky to do in literature, just because it does tend to get repetitive and a little boring for the reader if they're kind of repeating the same time span but with like slight different variations to it. So I do think Justin does a really good job of making each scenario that we do see in the book very different, so you do get like a different outcome for each of them, and it is entertaining in that way. I do think the ending, or the last time Jack time travels, is a little rushed, and that was kind of disappointing. I really liked this book, I really did. I tend not to like very gushy romance novels, but this was not as cringy as I thought it was going to be, but I really enjoyed it. I think Jack is a very interesting character, and I like seeing that the main characters are both Jack and Kate, the romantic interest, are both black characters, but they're not. They're just normal black characters, you know, they're dealing with normal things, and you don't really, well, race is important in their lives. It's not like the defining factor of who they are. It plays a part in who they are, but I liked that this story goes beyond the race issues, and I think that the two other like supporting characters were very well done. You definitely get to learn a lot about them, and they're also going through like issues in their life. I think they were just all very well-rounded characters, and I think all of the actions that occurred in this book were justified by the characters, and I thought it was a fun book. I do think it is a little on the long side, and it does get a little repetitive. You just kind of get bored with him like going back in time a lot. The issue I have with these stories also is that it kind of is weird, because you have the one character who has experienced their relationship multiple times, and then the other character who's kind of oblivious to it. So you almost feel like they're on different levels of like affection, because Jack, who has been with Kate for a very long time in these different situations, the different times he travels back in time, so it's very easy for him to fall in love with her because he knows who she is. But when he meets Kate, Kate is only experiencing Jack for the first time in all of these situations. So it's like a little strange that you have this one person that knows the person very deeply, and this other person that is oblivious to that, the time travel aspect, and is meeting this person for the same time every time it happens. So I thought that was, I always just have an issue with that and all like weird like time travel scenarios like this. But I think, I mean, the ending is pretty predictable in a sense, but I think the way the ending occurs, I have mixed feelings, because I think the way that the ending occurs makes sense, and I think it stays true to the story, but it's also just very predictable in that way, and a little too like sweet bow, like a neat bow tied, and I didn't really enjoy that. I tend to like my endings to be a little bit darker and depressing. This one was not that, but I still think it was definitely a fun read, and I ended up giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars, so I really enjoyed it. So I definitely think this lived up to my hype of the book. So yeah, I'm glad I got a chance to read it. So yeah, those are the 2 other books that I reviewed. So far, pretty good. Most anticipated reads. I think out of all of them, I really have enjoyed Queenie, and I really had fun with Opposite of Always. And Internment was frustrating, but definitely an important read, so I'm glad I read it. But yeah, that is all the books that I have read so far. I think my next on my list is going to be Black Enough. I have finally picked up a copy of that anthology, which I'm really excited about. So I think that will be the next review that I do on my channel. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys very soon with another one. Bye!